In a room full of glittering chandeliers, flowing champagne, and the quiet hum of violins, no one expected that the man who had built empires with his hands, the billionaire everyone whispered about, would suddenly collapse in front of hundreds of eyes. Gasps echoed, glasses shattered as they slipped from stunned hands, and people froze. Every powerful guest seemed paralyzed by fear and confusion. Yet, from the corner of the room where no one ever pays attention, a young waitress in a simple black dress stepped forward. She didn't wait for permission. She didn't care about titles, reputations, or wealth. She only saw a man fighting for life, and at that moment, her courage was about to change everything. That night, one simple choice would decide more than his fate. It would reveal the strength of a heart no one noticed, until it was too late to ignore. The gala had been planned for months, celebrating the billionaire Richard Alden's latest contribution to charity, and every eye had been on him as he raised a toast. But behind the sparkle, Richard carried a weight few people could imagine. Years of silent stress, loneliness that no fortune could cure, and the heavy toll of running a world that never stopped asking for more. As he fell, the room divided instantly between those who stepped back in fear and those who only whispered in disbelief. Yet the waitress Emma moved without hesitation. She had no wealth, no influence, but she had something no one else in that room seemed to remember, a sense of humanity. She knelt beside him, her hands steady even as her heart raced. She called out for help, but her voice carried not panic, only urgency. She began CPR, pressing her hands against the chest of the man whose face was printed on magazine covers. Every push felt like a battle, not just for his life, but for something greater. The reminder that even the strongest among us can fall, and sometimes it takes the unseen, the overlooked to lift them back up. The guests circled, some pulling out phones, others whispering excuses for not getting involved. Emma didn't hear them. She remembered her father collapsing years ago, how the ambulance had arrived too late because no one around him had dared to act. That memory was fuel, and tonight she swore history would not repeat itself. She kept counting compressions, her voice breaking through the panic. 1, 2, 3, 4, until finally Richard gasped, his chest rising with a shaky breath. Relief spread like a wave, yet no one moved closer. They stared as though they had witnessed something impossible. For Richard, opening his eyes and seeing not doctors, not security, but a waitress holding his hand, was more shocking than the collapse itself. In the days that followed, headlines spread across the world, billionaire saved by waitress at Gala. Journalists called her a hero, social media lit up with praise, but Emma never sought the spotlight. She went back to work, folding napkins and carrying trays as though nothing had changed. But Richard remembered. He remembered the fear of darkness closing in and the small but steady voice that pulled him back. He requested to see her, not in the grand halls of business, but in a quiet hospital room where the suits and diamonds couldn't follow. He wanted to thank her, but more than that, he wanted to understand why she did what no one else had done. Emma told him the truth. She told him about her father, about how she worked double shifts to pay her mother's medical bills, about how life taught her that every second counts. Her words cut deeper than any business negotiation Richard had ever faced, because in her honesty he saw something he had lost long ago, purpose beyond power. He offered her money, but she refused, saying, "I don't want your wealth. I just want you to remember that you're human like the rest of us." Those words stayed with him, haunting yet healing, reshaping the way he viewed his fortune and his life. Weeks later, at another gala, Richard stood before a crowd once again. This time, his voice trembled not from weakness, but from humility. He spoke not of profits or ventures, but of the night he nearly lost everything, and the waitress who reminded him of what truly mattered. He announced a new foundation, not in his own name, but in honor of everyday heroes, the ones who act when no one else will. And when the applause filled the hall, his eyes found Emma standing quietly at the edge, tears shining in the corners of her eyes. The story of that night spread far beyond the walls of the gala, inspiring people to act with courage when the world hesitated. It reminded everyone that titles, money, and power mean little in the face of life itself. What endures is compassion, the bravery to step forward when others stand still. For Richard, it was the night he learned that even billionaires can fall, but sometimes it takes a waitress to remind the world what rising truly means. And for Emma, it was the night she proved that ordinary hands can perform extraordinary acts, rewriting not just a man's fate, but the legacy of an empire. Her courage became a quiet anthem, echoing in every heart that heard the story. That no act of bravery is ever too small, and no life is ever too insignificant to be worth saving.